actually think that this industry should be at the forefront of all of that.
Hey, I'd like to circle back just on one question again, just to close up the Jones thing here a little bit more.
Sure.
And I think the question is just like, can this happen again?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Theoretically, yes. Yes.
So I could get pulled over and I can have a pin on me. And if I'm in the right county, the right place, this can happen again.
Theoretically, yes. And here's how and here's why. The Jones case was decided on a narrow set of facts and a narrow set of legal issues. If a prosecutor were in possession of a case that maybe had slightly different facts, which is entirely conceivable, and was able to assemble and articulate a different argument, yeah, they would in good faith be able to move forward with a fresh prosecution of a fresh citizen,
right,
and roll the dice on trying to kill the industry again.
Right. So in other words, this is not a green light and okay, do whatever you want, go get high and drive.
Correct, which is why I am constantly railing at people to stop behaving like they've won some sort of a war or a lottery.
Right.
Everything that we are enjoying right now can be taken away tomorrow.
That's a great point.
Yeah, and people get way too lax and think, well, it's everywhere now, so we're good. I would not recommend resting on your laurels. Remain vigilant.
Exactly. Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Is there a statute of limitations for the uneducated about marijuana laws? Like somebody that was maybe arrested. I know I've had experience with the prosecutor holding a case for up to a year. Yeah. Is there a longer timeline for that?
For the benefit of your listeners, I am principally a civil attorney. I don't do criminal. I can talk and certainly carry on a conversation, but yes, there are statutes of limitation. What their actual length is varies depending on the nature of the crime and the charge.
Okay.
Some can linger for years.
Yes, okay.
And I think, I don't know for sure in Arizona, but I know some jurisdictions, possibly Arizona too, there are some crimes that are considered so heinous that there's no statute of limitation.
Yeah, I was curious, basically, once legalization happens, is that going to eradicate everybody? And no. The answer is no.
It shouldn't.
Right.
So let's lay out the picture for a second. So it's coming up in November. We're going to have a initiative hopefully passed that makes recreational marijuana possible. Is that correct?
That is my understanding. By the way, can I just back up and add one more thing to that comment as well?
Oh, yeah, please.
Because you were asking about charges and all. And I mentioned that people are kind of a little too relaxed about things. I want to remind everybody listening, too, that Arizona has no legal marijuana of any kind.
Right.
The Medical Marijuana Act didn't legalize anything. So the listeners need to be crystal clear. The 200-ish thousand cardholders and the roughly 100+ dispensaries and all the dispensary agents and all the caregivers and everybody involved needs to understand that they are absolutely engaged in Arizona felony activity, as well as federal, of course. What AMA did, it did not eliminate the crime. What it did was created a safe harbor where, provided you are behaving yourself and honoring the rules and regulations of that program scrupulously, you will enjoy an immunity from prosecution.
Yes.
Which is very different than it not being a crime to begin with.
Thank you so much for that clarification. Very elegant, too.
Yeah, people need to remember, you're absolutely engaged in felony territory. If you behave yourself, you can't be charged for it.
And the card's a recommendation, not a prescription.
Correct. That's another thing, too. So because cannabis is a Schedule I substance under the Controlled Substances Act, doctors are forbidden from prescribing it, and pharmacies are forbidden from compounding or issuing it. So the only way you get a card is if your doctor makes a recommendation, not a prescription.
Awesome. Thanks for clarifying that.
Yep.
Yeah,
Happy to.
Yeah, you're right. 219,000 patients that was in their December.
Yeah. And the numbers only continue to grow. And here's what's fun, too. The year that Rodney got charged and convicted, and everybody thought that extracts were going to go away, patient numbers spiked upward. The threat of it going away somehow, directly or indirectly, caused patient numbers to spike up. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's also fascinating. We always kind of talked about this when we were, in the store, but basically everyone gets their card for pain. So out of that 233,000 here, I think that includes the DAs as well, the
yes,
dispensary agents and stuff like that.
It does,
but mass majority of everyone gets their card based on pain.
Yes,
and even if you take a look at these other things in here, muscle spasm, nausea, whatever, that's pain also. So really, everyone gets their card for pain in some fashion.
Yeah, you could probably describe it that way. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't quarrel with that too much. But the list of qualifying conditions is much vaster than that. There's chronic wasting. There's HIV, for example.
Crohn's disease.
Yeah,
hepatitis C, HIV, muscle spasm, nausea.
Which all do sound painful, but I think there's...
PTSD, I think cannabis can be a huge help for that. PTSD.
Oh yeah, well, and here in Arizona, we are absolutely blessed to have Dr. Sue Sicily, who's the nation's lead researcher on treating PTSD with cannabis, and she's right here in town. And I'm a friend of hers, and we're lucky to have her.
Oh yeah, she's been a cheerleader, and ever since the beginning, trying to do her projects. Remember that? And then they shut her down.
Oh yeah. The university got afraid and fired her because of it. This past year, she actually sued the Food and Drug Administration.
Really?
And maybe got them to change policy a little bit. So here's the short story on that. For her to do her FDA-approved studies, and she is FDA-approved. This is a legitimate professional doctor who's doing legitimate research through all the proper channels.
Is this the veterans program?
Okay. Correct. And her whole focal point is trying to help these poor coming back from the Middle East who have got terrible PTSD or traumatic brain injury, and just trying to give them a little bit of solace and comfort. I mean, my God, who would be opposed to this?
Right.
So the catch is, though, that under the FDA's regulations, there is a singular source of approved marijuana for study that comes from the University of Mississippi. And they've been growing it there for years, and this is no disrespect to the University of Mississippi, but they are growing something subpar. It's like worse than your grandpa's old dish.
You'd have to my understanding, you'd have to smoke like a whole pound of it to get you high.
I would not be shocked. The way I've heard it described, the way they ship it, it's ground up almost into a powder. There are twigs and sticks in it, and it's just really low grade quality product that doesn't even roughly approximate what you could purchase today in a dispensary.
Right.
And Sue Sicily's argument in part, and it's a valid argument, is why would we study that when literally nobody would ever ask that? We need better product, better quality. So she was pressing the FDA to try to open up additional cultivators so that she could get better medicine to use in her studies. They were on the cusp of having some significant ruling in the case when the FDA came back and said, well, we will look at opening up to more cultivators. And so the net result was the case ended up getting dismissed because the FDA kind of, air quotes, relented. But I ran into Sue last month and asked, how's it going? And she says, they haven't moved. So there's no new cultivators still.
What I learned about government, there's no liability in no.
Correct.
Correct. They just don't lose,
Yeah, it's a frustration.
Yeah, so I was just looking through some of the AZ DHS stuff. Looks like what's really interesting, I saw a number here. Looks like we're creating more pounds for less money. A little bit, because people are expecting a little bit better deals at the dispensaries now. It's getting more competitive with the market here in Arizona.
Yeah, well, the thing with cannabis, everybody's got to remember, at the end of the day, it's just a crop. It's a crop that you use in a particular way. You swap out the conversation and start talking about corn or rice or peas or asparagus. Same conversation. What's that conversation? This. Any farm crop is a race to the bottom. Whoever can get to the lowest price possible is going to kind of win, which means that your profit margins shrink and shrink and shrink.
Right.
In the early days where this crop was rare, of course it was expensive. Anything rare is.
Right.
The more common it gets, the cheaper it gets. Now, all that being said, we're also in a market that is developing literally as we sit here and talk about it. And the competition inside of that dynamic is you've got to try to find a way where you match production levels with patient levels Otherwise, you see what happened, for example, in Oregon last year. Oregon had a glut, a gross oversupply. Not enough patients to consume it all.
Right.
So prices in Oregon cratered. I think they dropped by like 50%.
Oh, it was nothing.
Wholesale prices.
Yeah, it was cheap. It was cheap there.
Yeah, you couldn't give it away. So if you're a producer who's just dumped millions of dollars into a crop and you're expecting it to pay you millions back to cover your cost plus profit, and now you're watching your numbers get sliced in half, oh my God, gut-wrenching.
Yep. I heard some guys were trying to bulk sell their stuff by the pounds. They're just trying to unload it because they couldn't. It was about to go bad, right?
Yeah, and I'd heard people were just destroying parts of their crop intentionally just to eliminate the glut. Yeah, which is still a loss.
It was interesting. We just got back from California, and we were in Ventura. We went over to Oxnard in that area, and we went to a dispensary. Come to find out, it wasn't a legit dispensary yet. It wasn't a state sanctioned one. But anyhow, what was really fascinating on that whole process is that their price was super high. So, for example, like an eighth here, you can get for like $20. Right?
Yeah.
There, it's almost 70.
Yeah, 24 versus 42.
Oh God.
Yeah, and most of it's because tax and stuff like that. They get away with it, but.
Yeah, well, and as you bounce around the different states too, regulations are so varied. Some states won't allow you to smoke. You have to buy extracted products, which is hysterical considering what we just went through with Jones.
It's in Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah.
Pennsylvania is vapor only, I think.
Yeah. New York has a no smoking law, which is hysterical. And then other states won't let you have extracted products. You can only have dry flower. So Arizona's lucky that we've got the full panoply of products. So we're probably a good bellwether for where the market's going to go in price.